So now I'd like to give a welcome to two very special guests. First of all, our moderator for tonight, Aubrey Marcus. He's an experimentalist, unconventional fitness junkie, and a human optimizer, and he lives in Austin, Texas. And then I'd like to give a very special welcome to our guest of the night, Grammy Award-winning music superstar and actor, Tim McGraw. Thank you.
Guys, thank you, Aubrey.
How's it going, Tim?
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
It's a good guy right here.
I can say the absolute same unequivocally about you, my friend. How are y'all doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
Thank y'all for being here. Uh-oh, I made a baby cry already.
Well, here we are.
Yes.
You know, life is an interesting journey that takes us to interesting places. And your journey took you to a lot of interesting places that we all got to hear on the radio and different things that you've sung about, singing from your heart. But there was a place it took you that wasn't exactly the place you wanted to be, and that's where this fitness journey begins. So why don't you take us back to that place?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a time in my life, everyone's life's relative, no matter what station of life that you're in, no matter how much money you make or how good or bad you apparently, or your neighbor's life apparently is. Everybody has a journey, and everybody's life has different ups and downs. And look, I was certainly had a dysfunctional childhood growing up, but here I was in the middle of my life, mid-30s, pushing 40, great career, great. My wife's, the most beautiful girl I could ever imagine was my wife, the sweetest lady in the world. 3 daughters. And I wasn't taking care of myself. I had some issues going on with my family. I lost my dad, who I was just getting to know, lost to brain cancer. He was only 59 years old. And then my stepdad, who I had a lot of issues with growing up, passed away. My grandfather, my grandmother, my coach, Coach Butler, who I dedicated the book to, who was one of my mentors growing up, passed away. So there was a lot of parental figures in my life who went away in a short period of time. And on top of all of that, I was having big issues with my career and my record label and all those things. So I really wasn't taking care of myself. I was living the wrong life. I was abusing my body in a lot of different ways, and my wife finally decided that was enough. My wife told me that was either get your life straight or you won't have us around anymore, and that was a big wake-up call to me.
Yeah, we all have those moments, I think, in our life where things get a little out of our hands, and all of a sudden momentum, we're all creatures of momentum. We make a little step in positive momentum, and we go that way, and a little step of distraction and maybe a little step of escaping from the pain of what's going on, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves in a place, and it's important to have people around you, like your wife, who said, no, family or straighten out, and then also a moment with your daughter.
My daughter, yeah. I had done a film earlier in the year, and see, my oldest daughter, Gracie's 22 now. I have a 22-year-old, a 21-year-old, and an almost 18-year-old, all daughters. My youngest is about to graduate high school, so we'll be empty nesters here soon. But we went to the theater. We were seeing a holiday movie, and I didn't think much about the movie I had just done. It never crossed my mind. And sure enough, we're sitting down, and we have our Milk Duds and our popcorn and our Coke, and we're getting ready to watch the movie, and the first trailer comes on is the movie I had just done, and the first scene was my face on a 100-foot screen. And my daughter looks at me and says, "Geez, Dad, you need to do something." And she was right. And it's funny, and it's a funny story, but it hit me in a completely different way at the time. It hit me in a way that, boy, kids really pay attention more than we think that they're paying attention. And I think that she was saying, I know she was saying something about more than the way I looked on that screen. She was saying something about the way I was living my life. And it made a huge, profound difference in me. And it wasn't overnight change. And look, I still have a lot of failure in my life, wrong turns in my life. Every day, you know, I don't do the right thing as a father. I don't do the right thing as a husband. Sometimes I don't do the right thing as a son, a brother, a boss. All those things that I'm supposed to do, I hit the ditch all the time. But what I've discovered is with that clarion call from my daughter and me putting myself on a road to get myself in a consistent physical fitness program, which started with just walking, just 10 minutes of walking. That's the way I started. What I found is when I do hit the ditch now, or I do backslide on my promises that I made to myself and do the wrong things or do things I shouldn't do or just am not the man that I should be, I'm able to rebound quicker. I'm able to get back on my feet quicker. I'm able to pull out of the other side of that ditch. Johnny Paycheck gave me the best. I don't know how many Johnny Paycheck fans are in here, but the best advice I've ever gotten being in this business as long as I have, early in my career, Johnny Paycheck, who didn't have much money at the end of his life, but my bus driver had played drums for Johnny Paycheck back in the day. So he called me and says, look, I know we're headed up to Ohio. Johnny Paycheck needs a ride to Ohio. Do you mind if he rides on the bus with us? And at the time I was single, and of course not. We'd love to have Johnny Paycheck ride on the bus with the band and I. And we have great footage of that recorded. A lot of it we can't ever show anybody. But there's some great footage of Johnny Paycheck on our bus, and we're playing songs together, and we're singing songs. And I said, Johnny, do you have any advice for? And I was just starting to happen. I was just starting to have a career going on, and I said, Johnny, do you have any advice for a young new country singer starting out? You know, what's the best advice that you could give me? And he thought for a minute, and he looked at me, and he said, son, he said, always go hard and fast enough so when you hit the ditch, you can pull out the other side. And it's been pretty profound advice for me my whole life.
Yeah. And then, so you hit that ditch.
Yeah.
And then we've all hit that. How many in here have hit that ditch? I know I have. I've hit that ditch before and felt that thing. And how many of us have done something that's hard to forgive? Yeah, it's hard to forgive ourselves, yeah. We've all been in that place, but it's always about that next step.
Yeah.
It's about lacing up those shoes. And for you, it's about just going out there and just putting one foot in front of the other, right?
It's the way it started, you know. And look, I'd always been an athlete my entire life. I grew up playing every kind of sport you can imagine and being pretty darn good at it. So but I'd let a part of that get away from me. I'd let that discipline that I had for that get away from me. And that was the only way I knew to start, was to get up and start walking. And I did it for a long time. I started with 10 minutes a day just walking. And it wasn't about, sure, there was some vanity that was driving it, but it was about getting control of my life, because I felt like my life was controlling me instead of me controlling my life. And all the things in this world that go on in everybody's world, everybody lives in their own world, and everything that's going on, there's so many things that you can't control. There's so many things that are out of your control, which requires some acceptance to accept that. But there are things that you can control. And one of the things that you can control is what you do with yourself and your body. And nobody else should control your body but you. So that's how I started walking, and it turned into running, and then it turned into body weight exercising, and then I started searching out and finding people who knew what they were doing and people who could teach me things, and finding different ways to, and then it became something that really, I realized what it did for me mentally as much as anything, how it cleared my mind. It became a meditation for me. It made me a better person. It made me better for my family. It made me better for my kids. It made me better show up for my art and the people that worked for me. It made me a better professional at what I did. And Aubrey and I were talking about this just a little bit earlier, of how when you open that door to some discipline and you start down these paths, how you find other things that you're good at, and how the mind and the body and the soul and everything is so connected, and how they feed each other. And if you don't find a way to feed your body physically in the right way, it's going to be hard to connect the rest of them.
Yeah, everything, even the idea itself, this is what we were mentioning, the idea of mind and body and soul all being different things, it all contains a little baby lie in it. A little baby lie calling these things separate, because they're all woven in, connected. It's a trinity in and of itself. And so you start taking care of one, you start taking care of everything. But what were the little voices? I have a question. What were the little voices in your head? Because it's hard to get started sometimes, you know. A lot of us know what we should do and what we think we should do, and no, I should do this. I should go for a walk. I should start doing this. What were the voices that were saying, nah, not yet, don't do it?
Yeah, but when you're young, you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
You don't have to worry about that till you're older. You're fine right now. You can still do what you do, and nobody notices, and all those sorts of things. But I think the biggest thing I found out is stop telling yourself you shouldn't. I mean, stop even having that conversation with yourself. Should I or shouldn't I? Stop having that conversation. And it's not about being heavy or thin or wearing a certain jean size or any of those things. It's about feeling good and doing something to make yourself feel good. Because if you make yourself feel good, then other people will feel good being around you. And that's where grace comes in. All the grit we've talked about, getting up and doing something every day and pushing yourself and finding determination and finding focus and finding drive. That's all the grit we're talking about. But the grace is learning to give grace to yourself. You've got to learn to forgive yourself and to look at yourself in the mirror and go, I can do this, and give yourself some room to make mistakes and some room to move forward. And until you can do that, until you can treat yourself with some grace and treat yourself with some dignity and treat yourself with some respect, meaning your body and your soul, until you learn to do, and your mind, when you learn to do that, it's easier to give grace to other people, and it's so much easier to accept grace from other people. And that's the hardest thing that it is to do, is to accept grace from other people. And that's not going to come until you can give it to yourself.
And so to be actually of service, because all of us here want to be of service. We all love taking care of maybe it's our pets, or maybe it's our children, or maybe it's our friends. But to do that actually well at all, you have to take care of yourself first. You have to be fit for service. And there's an analogy you like to use from an airplane that really describes that well.
Yeah, the oxygen mask theory. We've all been on airplanes, and they tell you that if the oxygen mask falls, place it over yourself before trying to assist anyone else. And you hear people all the time say, well, I'm going to put it on my kids first before I'm going to put it on myself. And I get that sentiment for sure, because I have 3 daughters, and I would jump out of the airplane if that's what it took to save them. But what that really says to me in the bigger picture is, if you're incapacitated, you can't do anything for anybody. So it means take care of yourself first in order to take care of others. And I think that's why I use that theory, and I think that's why, and it works. It really does. Yeah. I found it in my life. Changing that inner conversation that you have with yourself too. The negative conversation that we all have with ourselves. That's something you have to change, and it takes work, and it takes diligence, and it takes an everyday commitment to it. Nothing comes without polishing. You can't have some pretty silver without polishing it every now and then. Mm-hmm. And you have to do that for yourself.
And you talk a bit in the book about, getting rid of the mental fatigue that comes from this decision making, right? Where it becomes like, should I do this or should I not? I don't know if I need it. What if you just made it non-negotiable?
Yeah,
just something that you were going to do.
You just made it a matter of fact of what you're going to do.
Matter of fact, I'm going to walk 10 minutes a day. Everybody here can walk 10 minutes a day, right? There's nobody who can't. And you can't look at the goal of your fitness or anybody's fitness or anybody in a magazine's fitness. It's about you, where you are right now.
Where you are, and how what makes you feel better, and how can you contribute to yourself in different ways. Whether you can walk or whatever, you can find something that you can do that can contribute to yourself physically. And I think that it leads to concentric circles out and into different parts of different areas of your life. For instance, I always wanted to be a pilot, and I thought that was something that was just out of reach for me. I thought there was too much book knowledge that you had to learn. There was too many hours of time and dedication that you had to put into it. There's too much training that was involved. And until I got a hold of my life and got some discipline in my life, as far as physically, once I started figuring that out and getting that part of my life down, I grew some confidence in myself. And it gave me confidence to go out and learn how to fly an airplane. So I became a pilot, and I probably would have never become a pilot had I not taken control of my life in a physical way to start with.
So everything is a metaphor for anything is a metaphor for how you treat everything. Yeah. And I think that's a big lesson that you have in the book. And if you're not willing to give your body the grace and love and that nurturing support it wants from moving and breathing and sunlight and good nutrition, if you're not willing to give it that, well, then you're not willing to give anything at that. Because what you're willing to give anything is what you're willing to give everything in that certain way. So I think that's one of the inspiring things. How many people here have already read the book? A couple people already. Well, it is an amazing book, and I promise you, all of you who have that book in your laps, when you start reading that book, you're going to start getting inspired, because there's that little bit more, and you call it the inner maverick, right?
Inner maverick,
Inner
yes.
maverick, that's that little voice that says, all right, we can do a little bit more today.
We can, I mean, look, everybody has so much potential, no matter what you think about yourself. Everybody has so much potential to be everything that they want to be. You just have to nurture that potential, and you have to polish that potential, and you have to dig in and find it and tell yourself that you have it, and you have to remind yourself every day of it. And I tell you, we all love one another, and we all want to be there for the people that we love. But that gives you so much more capacity to be there for other people if you just do that for yourself.
Yeah. So as you went from this walk-in into running, tell us a little bit, because you go into your whole journey, which then continued to go. It always starts with one small step, but it continued to escalate into something really, really, really beautiful is what you've created, as far as from the guerrilla yards and the True Mav and the whole thing.
We have a lot of fun with it. And look, I'll be the first to tell you I'm pretty extreme. I mean, there's some extremism in my blood. I have some DNA in me that's pretty extreme. My father was a professional baseball player for 19, 20 years in the big leagues, and my uncle played for 12 years, mostly minor league baseball, but a great athlete. He was an All-American quarterback in high school. So there's a lot of, go push yourself in my genes, and that's part of my makeup. And that's also part of how I got in trouble to start with, is my extremisms and going to extremes and the bad things that I did for myself. So nobody's asking anybody to be extreme in what you do, but find your spot and do your thing. On the road, for instance, I'll give you a typical workout that we do on the road, which is pretty extreme, but it also puts me in a frame of mind to be able to do my job in the way that I want to do it, and be responsible for the people I need to be responsible for, and do the work that I need to do. First thing starts in the morning, and it starts with a walk. I start every workout out with a walk. I'm 52 years old, so I have to get the grease going a little bit before I can jump in and start doing a workout. I've had 2 knee surgeries. I've had elbow surgery. Had a couple of foot broken a couple of times. It's still broken, but there's little things that I have to loosen up in order to get a workout in. But I'll tell you, walking still it's almost spiritual for me to walk. It's something that really connects my mind, both sides. The bilateral movement connects both sides of my mind with my body. It's instant connection to the ground. It's all those things that are so good for you, the sweat that you start to break. So we start with a walk. I do a walk every morning, 30 minutes to an hour, usually an hour if I have time. And look, I'll be the first to tell you that I have the time to do that because of my job, and I have the sort of the inspiration to do it because of my job. I'm in front of 20,000 people every night, and I don't want to look bad when I'm up there if I can help it.
You don't want your daughter to come back and say that again.
Yeah, I don't want my daughter to come back and say, "Dad, you need to do something." Yeah, but so there's certainly vanity involved. But that's fine. But that's not going to hold you in there for the long run. What's going to hold you in there for the long run is being there for your family and being there for your friends and the people that love you. So I'll walk, and then there's a lot of stretching and body weight stuff that comes after that. And then after we finish that, a group of our guys, we run the stadium stairs. And as we're running the stadium stairs, at the top of each stair, we'll do a body weight discipline, whether it be push-ups or whether it be against the wall, upside down push-ups, or squats or abs or anything crazy that we can make up, we'll do. And then we run the whole stadium stairs. And then after we finish that, it's when we have a big lunch. And then after lunch, I usually have a couple hours of other things that I have to do. I mean, I have to make a lot of phone calls, do some interviews, check in with my family, make sure all of my girls are good, have to write some stuff, maybe work on some music, work on something that we're doing for the show that night. And then around 3:30 is when we end up in the guerrilla yard, which is a bunch of stuff that we throw in the parking lot. There are tires involved, there are chains involved, there are battle ropes, sledgehammers, pulling sleds, weighted sleds, or we'll find whatever's around. Like if there's a wall to climb, we'll climb a wall. We find all kinds of interesting ways to stay. But it's more than just working out. I can look out the window some days when I don't feel like it, and I can look out there and I can see 10 or 12 guys that are in my band or in my crew that are in their workout gear, and they're standing around our guerrilla yard waiting for me to show up and put them through a workout. And I know they're counting on me to come out there. So there are days where I don't feel like it, but I know that group of guys are counting on me to be there and be their leader. And there are days when I go out there and they pull me along, and there's days when I go out there and I pull them along. Now, I can also tell you, everybody are at different levels and different stages. Some people do different things than the rest of us do, or they do it smaller, lighter, slower, and all those things are fine, but they're engaged and they're involved, and it's become our community. It's become our community with each other and our support group for each other. We talk about a lot of things while we're doing that. We've built a deep and lasting bond because of that guerrilla yard that we work out in. We talk about our work, certainly. We talk about the show that we had the night before. We talk about what we're going to do differently in that show that night. But if we have some personal issues and even some gripes about me, although I try to shut those down pretty quickly. No. But even if there's gripes about me, we hash all of that out while we're working out. And it's very cathartic for all of us, and it becomes a really important tool in our toolkit with how we deal with our jobs and how we deal with each other and how we deal with each other's personality and how we push each other to be better. It starts out usually with 10 or 12 guys, but by the end of it, it's usually about an hour and a half workout. By the end of it, there's probably 3 or 4 left. You can see guys looking at their watch and just sort of backing off like that, sneaking out. EJ's not here, so I can pick on him. He's usually pretending that he's on the phone, so he can't do anything. But everybody gets a little something in, and I tell you, and it's so good for our soul and good for our hearts and good for our performances. Our performances, I don't know how many of you guys have been to our shows before, but our performances are pretty lively. We're not, don't just stand in front of microphones and sing. I couldn't do that if I tried. I have tried. I can't stand there and do it. And so our shows are pretty physical in themselves. So new people will come out and they'll see us do our workouts, opening acts and stuff, and they'll say, how can you go out and do a 2-hour show the way you do it and still do all those workouts? And our response has come to be, how can we not? I mean, that energy gives us, expending all of that energy throughout the day gives us the energy we need by the time we hit the stage. And boy, it lights us up, and in turn it lights you guys up, and it's sort of a symbiotic relationship that we all have when everybody's sort of lit up and feels good about themselves and feels like we're diving into this stream of water together, and we're just going to ride the stream out. Because I'm not that guy. When you come to my shows and you see me in the cowboy hat up on the stage, sort of dancing around like a chicken on a hot plate, with those tight jeans on, I'm not that guy 24/7. I mean, that's just not me. That's not who I am all the time. And conversely, when you guys show up and you go to the show and you try to forget about your worries and your cares, and that's my job to help you do that. And you forget about the stresses that you have, and you're just there to have a good time that night. You're not, and you got your beer up, and you're dancing, and your eyes closed, or you're crying, or you got your arm around somebody you don't know. That's not you 24/7 either. And sometimes you wish the lights would stay a little lower. I know. But that's what we're creating. It's something special, and that's why I love my job, and that's why I've put all this work in throughout the day, because I love that moment on stage when I get to spend with you guys, and we share that energy together.
I think, one of these things that he's talking about is creating positive rituals. So many of our rituals involve these things that are not actually good for us.
Yeah.
It'll be the ritual of eating bad food together, or the ritual of drinking together, or the ritual of gossiping together. But creating rituals around these positive things that have these positive stress points that really allow us to move and shake some of that energy out of our body and work towards a common goal. I mean, that builds a sense of community that's so much stronger than the other things that come too easy. The drinks and the fried food, which might come real easy on a night. But the other ones that come with a little more work, but they come with a lot more value too.
Absolutely. But I'll be honest, I'm going to have a Whataburger when I leave here tonight.
Yeah.
However, one of the things that I've learned to do, because it's become a positive ritual for me to get up and do my workouts every morning, but I've also learned that you got to enjoy life, and you've got to enjoy the things that you enjoy. But what I try to do, if I know, and my wife's a fantastic cook, so if my wife's cooking something that's really great, and I know I'm going to eat a ton of it that night, and I want to, then I'll put a little extra work in that morning. I'll try to earn it. I'll earn, like this morning I knew I was coming to Texas, and I knew I was going to get a Whataburger on the plane back. So I put some extra work in this morning. I earned my Whataburger this morning. But that's the beauty of taking care of yourself and learning, like Aubrey said, doing these positive things for yourself and developing these positive habits. We all want to feel good. Everybody wants to feel good. But we take these opportunities to feel good in bad ways. And what we need to do is feel good in good ways, because I think it leads to better and better choices in everything that we do in life.
Yep, and the only way to make a Whataburger not taste good, there's only one way, and I'll tell you that way. It's to eat it every day.
Yeah, you
That's the
can't eat
only
it every
way to
day.
make Whataburger not taste good.
Yeah.
If you eat it every day, well, then it's just something you take for granted, and you don't even, it's not supporting yourself in the way that you should, but you give yourself a break, you work hard, you have maybe your turkey burger that you love so much.
Love turkey burgers, yes.
You have your own, you got some great recipes in there, but you eat well, and then you have that time where you know what? I feel like a damn Whataburger right now.
That's right.
And then you can feel good about that whole entire experience.
Yeah. And that's back to feeling good. That's what we all want to do, is feel good, man. We want to find ways to make ourselves feel better and feel good and make other people feel better and be a light that people are drawn to you because of that light that you have. And I think some physical exertion and a steady physical practice, no matter what your practice is or how little you do or how much you do, all of that creates a light around you that people want to be around.
Every one of us here, we all have people who are looking at us. We all have people who are watching us. We all have people with their eyes on us, even if we don't think so, even if we think we're small and as big as a mouse and we could fit in a shoe sometimes. I felt like that before, like I was invisible and could fit in a shoe. But there's people watching us. And when we realize that there's people watching us and we're setting an example, not only for our kids, but for everybody else around us, then we realize the biggest gift we could give everybody else is to show them what's possible. And what's possible is just being a little better version of ourselves.
Yeah.
That's what's possible. And that's how we get to give a great, great, great gift to everybody else that's watching us.
I say it all the time, when my wife, I get in trouble with my wife, which happens, well, not often. I was going to say not often, but often enough that I'm reminded to say this story. But and I tell this to my daughters as well, and you hear it, I'm sure you guys have all heard it, and you hear it in everyday language, you hear it from anywhere. That's just me, that's just the way I am, and everybody comes in all different shapes and sizes and metabolisms and all those things, the way their thought process is, the things that they think about, their idiosyncrasies, all these things, everybody comes in different, everybody's different. But your job is not to say that, well, this is just me and this is just the way I am. Your job and your stewardship over yourself is to say, how can I be the best version of this is me and this is who I am? What are the things that I can do to make this is me and who I am better version of that? Because we all are God's children and we all have the capacity to be what we want to be. We just have to put a little bit of work into it and a little stewardship over it. Just like you do your home when you're cleaning your home. Just like you do when you're taking care of your kids and making sure they're doing the right things. Just like you do when you're taking care of an aging parent. Any of those things. You need to do the same things for yourself as well.
Let's give people a little bit of a taste of what it feels like to just do something really little.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And so one of the things you talk about in your book, and then one of the things I talk about in my book, and you talk in your book too, you talk about the victory pose.
Yeah.
So if we could get everybody up in the victory pose, and then in my book I talk about a study that was done on what happens when you take just 6 deep breaths. So if you could lead people through the victory pose, then I'm going to lead y'all through 6 deep breaths.
And you can do it sitting as well.
Yeah.
Or standing or sitting, whichever you prefer.
Yep. So you lead them through victory pose. I'll lead y'all through 6 deep breaths, and we'll just see, just an experiment. We'll just see if we feel any different after we're done.
And remember, stay connected to the earth. Get your hands above your head. Suck your belly button in. Lift your rib cage. Shake it out. Hands up. My microphone's too short. Let's take 6 together, everybody.
All right, now to finish this off, we're going to take 6 deep breaths together, everybody. All right, everybody, we're all going to do this together as one big group, all right? Ready to breathe in. Wow, it's like a little bit of magic just hit this room, isn't it?
Yeah. See, already you're in better shape. Just that quick. Do that every morning.
That's it.
And walk.
How that took a minute, you know? A minute at a time to do that. And all of us in here could feel it. Collectively, we could all feel it. I almost got chills. I could feel it so much, right? Like, and that's how easy that choice is. How much did that cost, by the way, everybody? How much did that cost? Oh, it was free. Free. You didn't need a gym membership for that. I got a great gym if people do want a gym membership. But you don't need it. You don't need it. You know, you just need to do simple things, like simple things that Tim talks about in his book, like that victory pose and like taking 6 deep breaths. So it's as simple as that,
It's as
really.
simple as that. And like Aubrey said, and I have a gym as well, and gym memberships are good. Yeah. But you don't need it. My journey didn't start with a gym membership. It didn't start with a high-priced trainer. It didn't start with any of those things. It started with just deciding that I was going to do something physical every day with myself. And that led to doing more and more. And I promise you, if you just set a goal and be specific about it. If you say for a week, I'm going to walk 10 minutes every day, I promise you it'll lead to more. And it'll make you feel better.
Amen. All right, you beautiful people wrote some questions, so I'm going to ask you these questions that these.
Oh, now it's getting real.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
All right, Tim, from Arden. How have you and Faith kept your girls humble and kind?
Well, mainly their moms, how we've kept them humble and kind. No, we have the most awesome girls. Anybody that's ever met our daughters, like I said, a 22-year-old, 21-year-old, and an almost 18-year-old, they are the most grounded, down-to-earth children you'll ever meet. We're so proud of them. Part of it probably is because we made a conscious decision. You know, we say we leave our careers at the door when we come home and we're just mom and dad, but it all bleeds over. But we've been a part of their lives. I can count on one hand the times that I've missed anything that's gone on at school. We've always tried to be a part of their lives, and when their friends are around, it's Mr. McGraw and Mrs. McGraw. And I'm known as more than anything, I'm known as Gracie's dad. Because Gracie is like the extrovert in our family. So anywhere I go, oh, you're Gracie's dad, you're Gracie's dad. But we kept them away from the business as much as we could, the wild part of it, or some of it. We've involved them a little bit along the way too, but we never wanted them to feel entitled. And we always wanted to provide a good example of that. We work hard. No matter what our job is, we work hard. I remember a story, Gracie was in preschool, and they were laying down trying to take a nap, and Gracie wouldn't lay down. She would get up and she'd walk around and she would lay down. And the teacher said, you know, you need to take a nap, just like all your parents have to take a nap. But when they work, then they're tired and they have to take a nap. And Gracie goes, well, my dad doesn't work. He just does shows. And it was hard for the teacher to argue with her.
That's great. All right, Tim, this is from Louisiana Debbie, which I imagine is her location and her name.
Where you at?
Any upcoming movies for you? She loved Blindside.
Oh, thank you. You like Blindside? That was a fun movie to make, and gosh, I got to work with Sandra Bullock, who's so incredible, such a professional. Man, a big hand for Sandra, yeah. And talk about in a crazy world like Hollywood, somebody who's really grounded and real and a real person, Sandra Bullock. So she deserves you guys being her fans because she really is a great gal and a great person. I've loved every movie I've been a part. Well, I don't say I loved every movie I've been a part of. There's been a few, not so much. But I don't know. I'm probably will do another one eventually. I don't enjoy the process tremendously because it's hard for me to sit still for very long. Like this is a long time for me to sit still. and I've already gotten up a couple of times. And when you're making a movie, there's a lot of sitting around waiting. My hope is that the next movie that I'm involved with is a premiere to go see one of my daughters, Audrey or Gracie, in a movie, because they both want to be actors. So that would be the best part of a movie for me, is to go see their premiere.
Wow, let it be so. From Renee and Wendy, what made you add grace to the grit? In other words, why not just have a workout book alone?
Well, because I think it was important to say a little bit about my background, some of the issues that I dealt with, and some of the things. Now, there's a lot of stuff I'm never going to tell, but I thought it was important to sort of set it up and have the grace in there, because, boy, I've needed grace several times in my life, and I've gotten grace even when I wasn't willing to extend it to other people. And that's been a very important part of my journey. And I thought without that, it would have been hard for me to set up just a workout book. And I just didn't want to do work. I'm no professional trainer. I make mistakes even working out all the time. I'm always exploring and trying new things. But I thought it was really important to understand the grace aspect of giving grace to yourself in order to give it to others, and more importantly, in order to accept it from others.
Yep. Okay, what is your favorite book, and what are you reading at the moment? And this is from Iris.
Oh, wow. I'm a big reader. I don't know how many of you guys know that about me, but I'm a voracious reader. I read everything I can get my hands on. I went on vacation and read the history of Africa one time just because it was the only book laying around, which was really incredible. I loved it. It's hard to pick a favorite. I have a favorite. My favorite genre is historical fiction. So anything historical fiction I love. I would have to say, if I had to, if somebody nailed me down and said your favorite book, I'd have to say Winds of War and War and Remembrance. They're back-to-back novels, and they're both around 1,000 pages each, but they're just incredible books, and got a lot of life lessons from those. They're really great books. And Shanaram, I don't know if you ever read a book called Shanaram. It's a really incredible book.
Yeah, great.
And I'm reading now a book called Akin. It's about a 80-year-old gentleman who left. I can get in the whole thing, tell you all about the book. I probably shouldn't do that. But it's really cool. It's 80-year-old gentleman who was a professor. His wife had been passed away for 10 years. Didn't know his extended family. He had fled southern France during the Nazi occupation as a little boy, and discovers he has this great nephew who's 11 years old, who's a ward of the state that needs somebody to take care of him. He's about to go on his trip on his 80th birthday to go back to Nice for the very first time. So this kid that he doesn't know, he has to take custody of, goes with him, and they develop this beautiful relationship. And that's what I'm reading now.
Cool. Sounds like a great story. All right, this is from Paula. Tim, what kind of music do you like to listen to while working out?
I listen to Tim McGraw all day. A little bit of faith. No, I'm kidding. Seriously, I don't listen to music when I'm working out. Occasionally I will. And the problem is it throws my count off. When I'm counting the reps that I'm doing, I'm counting the music instead of the reps, so I end up not getting the reps count right, and it always throws me off, and it makes me mad, so I don't listen to that much music. But when I do listen to music, I'm an Eagles freak. I'll go to the Eagles every single time. I love the Eagles. Yeah.
All right, this question is from Bob. Bob says, I survived a near-death experience 5 years ago and got through it partially by listening to Live Like You Were Dying. Can you talk about the inspiration for that song?
Where you at, Bob? Who wrote that? Is Bob around? Hey, Bob. Good on you, man. Good on you. Glad you're here. Right on. That song was written by two great songwriters. And one, Tim Nichols is one, and Craig Wiseman is the other. Craig Wiseman, interestingly enough, I met my very first night in Nashville. When I moved to Nashville, and he also wrote Everywhere and I think Green Grass Grows and just a bunch of big songs for me. But Craig was playing drums at the local bar when I first came to Nashville. The first bar I walked into, Craig Wiseman was playing drums, and it ended up being one of the biggest songwriters in my career. But I had that song. They wrote that song for me during the time that Tug developed brain cancer and was going through all of his treatments. I fell in love with the song instantly. and it really touched me. I never played it for Tug because I just couldn't find the courage to play that song for him while he was sick. And then I struggled with whether I should record the song or not. I struggled with, after Tug passed away, it was in January, I struggled. I didn't want anyone to think that maybe I was taking advantage of Tug passing away with this song, but this song spoke to me so much. And then the more I thought, and I even talked to my brother about it, talked to my wife about it, the more I talked about it, the more I realized that knowing Tug, if he thought that there was a song that was recorded about him, he would be smiling in heaven or wherever he was. But he would be smiling, and he'd be so happy. It'd be like he pitched the last pitch of the World Series all over again. So we decided to record the song anyway. But such a beautiful and special song, and I feel like for me that's not my song. I feel like I'm lucky that I just happened to be the vessel that was able to perform that song. I felt like that song, every time I sing it, I think it comes from somewhere else. I'm just happy that I'm there on stage and able to experience it when I sing it. A month after Tug died, we were in upstate New York, just outside of Woodstock, and we had rented a recording studio that was an old Dutch farmhouse on the top of a mountain, and we had trucks of equipment brought in, and all of us were living there for 2 weeks, and we had 3 or 4 foot of snow outside, and we had these big fireplaces going, and I brought my Uncle Hank up to stay with us during that time, Tug's older brother, and Tug had only been passed away a month, and I had a vocal booth that was built that was completely glass that I could see through, so I could see everybody in the band, so I could sort of be the conductor and see everybody in the band, which sometimes they didn't like so much. But it was about 2 a.m. Uncle Hank was sitting on the couch, the fireplaces were roaring, and I looked at the guys and I thought this is a good time to record "Live Like You Were Dying," and I saw my Uncle Hank just sort of stiffen up and prepare himself for it, and we started recording that song, and it was just like, sometimes in making music, you say you're lucky when God walks through the room, and that's how a hit song is formed. God walked through the room that night, and pretty much what you hear is what we recorded that night. And I can remember looking over and seeing tears rolling down my Uncle Hank's face, and everybody in the studio just being so wrapped up into the music of that song, and knowing not only what it meant for me and for my uncle, but knowing what it would mean to other people, and that was a magic song and a magic night.
That's a beautiful story. It often seems like some of the best stuff just comes through us, right? You know, that is grace, right?
You're just glad that you're at the right spot, you know?
Yeah, just the vessel. All right, last question. If you had one song to listen to for the rest of your life, what would that be? And that's from Samantha, who has some XOXOs on there.
Oh my gosh. One song, that's hard for a guy who sings songs for a living to have one song that loves music. I would have to, I'll tell you what I would do is I would pick Breathe by my wife. Not only because I think that she is probably one of the best singers that's ever walked the earth. I mean, her voice is magic. And she ain't bad to look at either. And I got very fortunate that she's my wife, and she's one of the sweetest souls you'll ever meet as well. She's awesome. But she's a remarkable woman. But that record in particular, the sound of that record, the production on that record, her performance, the musicianship, everything about that record is probably one of the best sounding records that I think's ever been recorded, and I never get tired of listening to it when it comes on.
Beautiful. Well, for all these beautiful people here, are there any final words you'd like to leave them with before we step out of here tonight?
You know, I just hope that you, like we've been talking about, learn to look in the mirror and give yourself some grace. Give yourself the idea that, look, I've made mistakes and I will continue to make mistakes, but the best thing that I can do is the best next thing tomorrow. Get up tomorrow and do the next best thing. Do something good for yourself. Be that pebble that hits the pond and causes the ripple effect to go throughout everybody in your life. You never know, like Aubrey hinted to it earlier, you never know who's watching you. Someone's always watching you, and someone's always looking at you for some guidance, whether you know it or not. And give them guidance, and always behave like someone's watching when you're taking care of yourself, because I guarantee you somebody is. And if one person can walk out of here or read this book or read Aubrey's book or listen to what we have to say, and some of it we're just riffing off each other, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit over the last couple of days, and this is a really great guy, and I'm proud to get to know him, and I like his soul. But if one person can walk out of here and start a program of making themselves feel better every day in a good, positive way, then it's all been worth it.
And it's been done, my friend. It's been done because this one person is right here, sitting in this chair right here, because I'm a better person for having gotten to know you the last 3 days.
All right on, man.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for coming out. Enjoyed it. Really a good time.
Thank y'all, everybody. Good night.
If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe. Also, share with any friend that you think might benefit from it. And lastly, go to aubreymarcus.com, sign up for my newsletter diary, and you won't miss a thing.